good sticks, everyone? Welcome to the Captain Avalanche Fancast, your unofficial source for all things Colorado Avalanche hockey and more from a fan perspective. Hosted by me, Captain Avalanche Corey, and future superhero prospect Sharkman Dom. Now, we're no insiders. We're not inside the locker room face-to-face with our favorite players, but we hope to create a relatable and welcoming environment because we're just like all of you listening, fans. Fans with a deep passion for the game of hockey, and in this case, the Colorado Avalanche. Oh my goodness, this is episode 20, Dom. I really can't believe that we made it here. I know we were discussing it before we started recording, but here we are. We've kept it rolling.
Yeah, I can't believe we're still here and still doing it, and it's a great time to be able to keep going with it every week. I know we weren't sure how much we'd be able to do, but I'm really happy to be able to keep doing this with you every week, and we're gonna get through this whole season and the playoffs and everything. It's gonna be great. But real quick, I'm sorry, I'm a future superhero Sharkman. I am just picturing that I am like a better version of Aquaman with like a Victor Crumb shark head from Harry Potter.
Yeah, that's kind of where my vision was too. I saw the skin tight suit and I also saw the shark head. So you're kind of right in my wheelhouse of what I was thinking for Sharkman there.
Oh, that's pretty sweet. Do I get to like choose or be able to like morph between like a shark head versus like a human head, or can I like
I don't know,
do
dude.
full Harry?
It's your superhero. You tell me.
Oh, okay. Well, then we're going full Harry Potter style with this, where I can turn into either I can do anything in between, where I could be half shark, half man, or I could go full shark or be full human. Like have that's sweet. That's what we're gonna do.
All right.
I can see it now.
Well, everybody keep an eye out for Sharkman in the future. Well, everyone, I actually do not have any additional like funness, if that's a way of putting it, to my segment this week. That actually is being taken by Dom, who has a unique segment for you all later. But this week, we're just going with the classic. We only had 2 games this week to cover, both back-to-back in Canada, with the Avalanche playing both Calgary and Edmonton. So we'll just run through these games, tell you some observations, maybe answer some questions along the way. Oh, I also did mean to say, though, thank you to all of you who have joined us for all 20 episodes so far. If you're one of the people who keeps listening, my God, we appreciate you. But my God, please tell more people about this show. We want more people to listen. But I think for this next week, since there will be no hockey other than the 4 nations, we have some exciting segments planned, don't we, Dom?
We do. I can't wait to bring them to you. We've hinted at them through different episodes so far this season, but maybe we keep it as a surprise. I'll let you decide there, Captain.
I think we'll keep that a surprise. One thing I will say is I've actually realized that my goal for the podcast was, of course, to talk about the Avalanche and the Sharks, but also to bring hockey to the masses. I want to help grow the game. Dom, I know you want to help grow the game. We want to bring more people into this circle of our sport. And I realize that sometimes I'm using terminology and not always explaining what things are. And I know that can sometimes be frustrating for those who are familiar, but I learned just from some feedback that there may be some folks who are less familiar. So for one, I will do a better job of explaining any terminology, analogies, stats, or things that I'm talking about. But I think next week we may try and have perhaps a short or just an introductory segment to the game of hockey. So if you're unfamiliar to what the hell we're talking about, but you're tuning in as a supporter to the Avalanche and maybe to me or Dom, but you're not exactly sure what the heck this game of hockey is all about, well, maybe we can turn that around, make you a bit more privy to what the hell we're saying any given week, because we talk fast and we say a lot of numbers and a lot of things any given day.
I think that's a great idea, Corey. And honestly, while we're talking about our own growth as podcast hosts and the growth of the goals and the original intent of the podcast, I would just like to say, and I know you would tell me not to dwell or be self-critical or really, and I strive not to, but I just do want to extend a genuine apology first to you, Corey, but also to all of our fans listening for, in the previous episodes, losing track of time in the tank, especially our last episode before this one. I've always said that it's an Avalanche fan cast, and I do want to support that vision, but I have lost track of the time. I've gotten uber excited about some of the Sharks news, and I know that eats into our time for other segments. So it might have happened previously as well, and I don't want to dwell on it or put myself down or anything, but I do just want to say that as to all the Avalanche fans and to all our new fans who don't know a lot about hockey, I just want to, and to you, of course, Corey, for being the most wonderful co-host, I just want to extend the most heartfelt apology for losing track of time and letting my overexcitement for the Sharks take over so much time of our recent episodes. So as we focus on growth and the exciting things of the future, I just want to take this opportunity to set that own personal goal for myself and just extend my heartfelt again apologies for losing my way a little bit there.
Well, Dom, we certainly hear you, and of course, we appreciate it. But I do want you to know this is not just me saying it. I've had so many people come to me and tell me just how much they enjoy hearing your segment and your energy talking about your team. And they do like hearing about the Sharks. So I promise you it is a meaningful segment for many of our listeners. So it is all for naught. But you're definitely right. And I think we can all have time get away from us a little bit. But that's the point of growth. And we are still, even though we're only 20, or even though we're 20 episodes in, we are still pretty new at this. So we're still learning as we go. And that's why, we communicate outside of the podcast. We work out strategies for success, and I'm sure we'll find it. So no worries other than to keep pushing forward and be better every episode. We always say the most recent episode is our favorite because it just gets better and better every time. And I think we've managed to keep that goal. So that's all right. And tonight it might be a little bit of a shorter episode anyway, just with the limited talking points, but we'll see.
Yeah, and you're right, Corey. And so thank you for saying that. And I think we have done that. We have gotten better with every episode. I think we've done our best to keep it fresh. And I just want to refresh that commitment to do so. So I'm excited looking to the future of what we can bring starting tonight and with every episode. And I'm thank you to everyone who listens and appreciates the Sharks, whether it be for my pain of them being in last place. I'm happy that the love that I have for them is visible to others, and I hope it encourages others to have their love of the game as well.
Exactly. And I certainly think it does, but we will jump right into it. Avs versus Calgary. So going into this game, I would just like to point out that the Avalanche had killed 31 for 34 penalties in the month of January, which is fantastic. What was so strange about the Avalanche special teams this season is they really flip-flopped. Is in the beginning, the power play was just rifling off goals, 35%, but gosh, the fucking penalty kill was awful. And then all of a sudden the penalty kill gets really, really good. Power play falls off a cliff. And now, all of a sudden, as you'll see, we've reached a happy medium. Not only is the penalty kill killing penalties, but the power play is finally scoring again. And it just, man, it feels good. Because I was listening back, Dom, to some of our other episodes, just hearing about the Sharks' special teams woes. It just reminded me of the Avalanche's special team woes. So I'm very happy that it just seems like we found that happy middle ground.
And it's happening at the right time.
Seriously.
We always talk about this. And for those, this is a great opportunity for something for the new fans. There is something to being good or at your best, being hot, as we might say, at the right time. You want to be playing your best hockey come the end of the season right in time for playoffs. You want to be playing your best hockey of the year in playoffs. We say every game matters, but if you don't want to peak too early is maybe the best way to put it. So I think the Avs are coming into their own and hitting their stride at just the right time.
Yes. Well, we'll jump right into this. After a tough shutout loss, what the fuck? Shutout loss in Vancouver. The Avalanche came into Calgary with, I think, a chip on their shoulder. They started the Kelly line, and they had some quick chances early. And they had also noticeably, they had Logan O'Connor on Kelly's wing. So obviously they had broken up that roaring 20s line with Miles Wood, Logan O'Connor, and Ross Colton after a really, really poor showing by Wood against Vancouver. But we talked about and perseverated on it last week. So we certainly do not need to talk about it any further this week. But in the beginning of the game, the Avs really started shooting themselves in the foot because they ended up down in a 5-on-3 almost 2 minutes in, I think. And they were doing fine on the kill originally, but then you have Calvin DeHaan with an absolutely awful clear straight over the glass. And, what a shocker. The Flames, whose power play had been red hot up to this point, scores on the 5-on-3. And it was Huberdeau who scored it. And man, not that it's been great, but if we check Huberdeau's numbers right now, let's see where he's sitting. He's had a much better season this season. Would you not agree, Dom?
No, absolutely he has.
He's right now sitting at, okay, no, it hasn't been that great, but he's sitting at 41 points in 55 games this season, which, that's all right. That's pretty okay, because last year he only had 52 points and 55 the year before that. But I mean, man, what a drop off. I'm just looking at this 115 the year before to 55 the year after, a 60-point difference. Oh my gosh.
Well, that is insane. And so I would expect this season to finish somewhere in between 41 points in 55 games. If I run the math on that, how many points would he have in 82 games?
Well, we can do some quick math here. 41 divided by 50.
It would be about 61. So that would be an improvement from last year. And, I think it's come in stretches. But what he can provide as a leader on the team, even if he's not necessarily scoring all the points, I just think he has rebounded, or he has showed that his resilience. We've talked about resilience a lot, especially with like Casey Middlestat, for example. So I think that is a good word to sum him up.
Yeah. And I mean, it's certainly been tough for him. And I mean, that 115-point season was certainly an outlier if you look at the rest of his point totals with the Florida Panthers. But I mean, he definitely was a higher quality player than when the Flames received him. And obviously, Florida definitely got the winning end of that deal with Matthew Tkachuk, whose production did not fall off even in the least bit. But back to the 5-on-3, I'm frankly tired of hearing Riker specifically try and make excuses like 5-on-3 is a shock to the system. I don't frankly give a shit. We're almost 60 games into the season. Play the game. We're almost done. Either figure it out or fuck off. Honestly.
Well, it's a shock to the system, but it's your own fault for giving up 2 power plays in short, consecutive order. If it's a shock to the system, well, then improve. It shouldn't be a shock if you're making the mistakes.
Well, yeah, and he's saying that there's nothing that the Avalanche could have done, but there was. Don't take the fucking penalties, especially a delay of game. That's so avoidable.
Delay of games are I get it. It happens. Sometimes the puck rolls off weird, but if you're aiming for the glass, just trying to get the puck to ricochet out of play, you're already risking it. You're making it more likely that you are going to have a puck over glass play. Pass it up the ice instead of trying to throw it at the plexiglass and have it bounce off. Because for those who don't know, if you throw the puck and it bounces and it just clips a piece of the boards and it clips a piece of the glass, then it's not a puck over glass penalty because it was redirected. So guys will sometimes in their own D zone throw it intentionally, trying to get that ricochet and get a stoppage in play. But if you just put the puck up the ice, that could work too. You could keep possession. You don't know what would happen, but you certainly won't get that puck over glass penalty. So it's absolutely avoidable.
And I mean, to DeHaan's credit, I understand what he was trying to do. The Avalanche have really struggled this season in clearing their own zone, whether it's 5-on-5 or on the penalty kill. So what they've done, instead of trying to pass it up the ice, is they've resorted to trying to loft it to center ice, which is fine. I think that's a fine way to do it, but I think he rushed himself too much because he felt pressure coming down on the back. So he quickly tries to throw it off the boards, but instead he just roofs it right over the glass. And I mean, really, this first period in general, the Avs just did not look good. The decision-making was not there. And to me, if there was any game they needed to win, it was this one. I mean, it's all of them, but the Flames are on their heels, right? They want that first wild card spot. And the Avs were really struggling to get the puck up ice in the early goings, and their back check was not good either. I mean, the Flames were just skating circles around them, so it was no surprise that they got out to an early lead. I mean, 5-on-3 certainly doesn't help. And, thank God for Mackenzie Blackwood, who, fun fact, has 249 high danger saves, at least going into this game, which was second in the NHL. And I mean, to just talk about Mackenzie Blackwood a little more, I was reading a nice article from the Hockey Writers today talking about like who the Avalanche's MVP is. And I even said this, if you'll recall, back when we were asking ourselves who's the best player in the Colorado Avalanche, I said by the end of the season that Mackenzie Blackwood might have a right to be in that conversation. And I want to be so real because I agree with what they said. And I feel like I said it before that if the Avalanche didn't make the trade for Mackenzie Blackwood, thanks again, Dom and Mike Greer, I don't know if they'd be in this position. I really don't. I mean, McKinnon and Makar have been incredible this season, as they always are. But I truly do not know if the Avalanche would be in the position that they're in if they still kept with the current goaltending staff that they were with. Because it just feels like the competition has continued to heat up as the season has gone on. The top teams in the West, at least those in a playoff spot, have continued to grow stronger. And I mean, you watch some of the saves that Mackenzie Blackwood has to make, and I just don't see either Georgiev or Onanen ever making those saves, ever.
Yeah, and they won't. And that's something we talked about from the beginning because I'm not even surprised to hear that number because Blackwood has been that insane all year and he is at his prime. He is as good as the best goaltender in the NHL on any given night. I think watching him in a duel against Hellebuck is always fun. Him against someone like a Shesterkin, Ottinger, these top goalies, I think you can put him up there against any of those guys any day. And he's earned it. He's proven it. And even if he's not the MVP of your team because Makar and McKinnon are generational talent superstars, what he is taking your team's biggest weakness and turning it not only from being removing a weakness, but turning it into a strength. That is such a huge value, a shift that makes it a reasonable argument for MVP because he's doing what those guys can't do. They can't be making those saves. He is. That's where when we were talking about game breakers, it's sometimes hard to give goalies the proper credit and compare them to guys on offense because they do such different things. But I can say without a shadow of a doubt, if the Avalanche had not made that trade, or honestly both of those trades to go from one of the worst goalie tandems to top
One of the
5 in the league for
best.
certain,
Yeah.
they would not be. They might still be in the playoff hunt, but they would certainly not be a contender, and they would be much more
No.
afraid of Vancouver and Calgary behind than they would be about chasing Dallas and Minnesota ahead, which they are still nipping at their heels.
Oh,
Like
it's
you said,
right
everyone is
there. 2 to 4 points any given night. They're right there.
right. And as you said, everyone in the West has been getting better. They've been consistently elevating as the season has gone on, and the Avs have kept pace. And that's all you can expect. When they have some of those struggles earlier in the year, the best they can do is to not make it worse. And Blackwood has certainly been responsible for that.
Yes. And I mean, I think that was the thing that everybody pointed out was the Avalanche's biggest weakness going into this season. Goaltending. We tried to make excuses for it, tried to deny it, but I mean, it's a fact. And I mean, even on the nights where he lets in 4 goals, which are very, very rare nights, let me fucking tell you, he still looks fantastic. That's the whole thing about it, is even when the team in front of him is not playing great, he's playing fantastic. Mackenzie Blackwood truly and honestly gives this team a chance to win every night. And I mean, that's why he deserves to be in that MVP conversation for the Avalanche, because he just gives us a chance to win, especially on nights where you might not be able to. So I really am glad that the Avalanche decided to finally invest in their goaltending a little bit. You know, they're paying him what I think is going to end up being a steal in regards to, you know, the contract that they ended up paying him. So it's going to really work out. And people are saying that he has such high upside going into this next season. And I really do believe that without a shadow of a doubt. I'm trying to get this to load. Here we go.
It is just absolute robbery, the price you got him at, and it makes it all the more frustrating for the Sharks fan. Like, seriously, I get it. Askarov wants to be the starter, but you're telling me we, with our like 40 million in cap space for the next couple of years that we do not project to fill, you're telling me we couldn't keep him around because he kept the Sharks in games. The Sharks would not have double-digit wins if it weren't for Mackenzie Blackwood, and I'll posit this. If Mackenzie Blackwood started the season on the Avalanche, I think he would be the top contender to Hellebuck for the Vezina, and I'm not trying to be overly on the top and hype up my guy. I'm serious. If he doesn't have the stats of playing on the Sharks weighing him down, he is a legitimate contender with what he can do in the consistency, but also the flashy plays, the hard saves, those high danger saves that you're talking about, Corey. I think next year it is a legitimate consideration that he should be considered in the a top 3 Vezina candidate going into the new year. And we'll see. I mean, especially if he is in that, even remotely in that conversation, then the contract is absolutely a steal regardless.
And I want to see something. I want to see how many starts he's had this year. Because he has 22 games over 900 and the league average is 10.6. Like, what? Anyway,
Yeah.
he has, for the Colorado Avalanche, he has 22 starts for the Avalanche and 19 for San Jose. So, I mean, even though I know not all of his Avalanche games have been over 900, but a large majority of them have. And 57.9% of his starts are over 900. He has a .917 overall save percentage when the league averages .902. He's rocking it above in high danger save, GAA, mid-range. I mean, he's above the curve in every category. These motherfuckers ranked him before. They ranked him in the same category as Alexander Georgiev. How?
Yeah, I don't see it because, I mean, I just don't see it. It's simply this. He was something at like an 895 save percentage when he left the Sharks.
Which is,
So he has jumped over 20 percentage points, which is very tough to do in what? And you're saying just as many games as he was on the Sharks. And it is so hard to fix a bad grade, which means he is performing that much above expected, not only to be above 900, but so far above 900 that he can keep raising that average and increasing his grade, if you will. It is unreal. It is so disrespectful to put him in the same tier as Georgiev. I'm like, fine, if you want to glaze Georgiev and recognize him and give him that 4 tier, whatever, you got to put Blackwood ahead of him by far, because I mean the drop off for the Sharks has been obvious, and the improvement for the Avs is equally obvious. So that's not just one data point. That's 2 data points right there to show, hey, these guys are not in the same league.
And just to clarify to everybody, 1 was the best, 5 was the worst. Nobody was ranked a 5, but it was an average across what all the people who participated ranked them. And so his average was a 4, meaning he was on the low end of goaltenders, which I think is very stupid. I think the people they had in 1 were like Shesterkin and Ottinger and shit like that. I don't even think Shesterkin has a better save percentage than Mackenzie Blackwood does this season. I mean, that's partially
should be a 2. Shesterkin should be a 2. And you know what? If people don't want to trust us and put Blackwood as a 1, give him a 2. But it's disrespectful to put him all the way down.
Shesterkin's rocking a .90. Move out of my way. .906. His last 5 games. These are his last 5 games. Against Colorado, .773. Against Carolina, .846. Against Boston, .792. Against Boston again, .882. Against Pittsburgh, .885. That's 5 games in a row below 900.
Yeah, brutal.
And then if we look at Mackenzie Blackwood, Ooga Booga. Now I have to get into this because this pissed me off. Here's Mackenzie Blackwood's last 5 games. 1,000, .933, .931, and a .852. 1 game below 900 in his last 5.
And 2 shutouts.
Yeah, 2 shutouts. Get the fuck out of here, dude. Is a .922 with the Avalanche. And he still had a .911 with the Sharks. Yeah.
Wait, he actually finished with a .911?
Yeah. Get the fuck out of here, 4. A 4. Like, yeah, maybe he's not the best goaltender right now, but fuck off. Whenever the NHL posts like their top 4 goalies of the week in terms of like who has the best save percentage out of all the goaltenders, I think they have to play at least 3 games that week. He's been on that like I think 4 or 5 times ever since he came to the Avalanche. Fuck off, dude. I will not tolerate the Mackenzie Blackwood disrespect anymore. He is a fucking gem. We love him. I love you, Mackenzie.
Well, yeah, and it's not even that his save percentage is so high, but then when you look at the saves on the highlight reel, who else is making those saves right now? Other than maybe Askarov trying to bail out the Sharks, and he's younger, so he's not doing it as well as Blackwood was, and he'll get better. Trust me, I can't wait to see him at his peak, and he's just going to keep on improving. But Blackwood is seriously making the most highlight reel saves of any goaltender in the league this year. Full stop. No no question. Hellebuck has been solid as always, but Blackwood is making the highlight reel saves far more
Hellebuck
often.
Hellebuck really isn't like a highlight reel goaltender to me, though. I mean, he is the best. Like, I will full admit, Connor Hellebuck is the best goaltender in the NHL right now. Full stop. Absolutely. I believe that. But he's just not like the highlight guy. He's just always in position. That's the thing with Hellebuck. He is just never out of position. So no matter where you are, Hellebuck is there to meet you. I would say if I had to pick like the highlight reel goaltenders, I would say Ottinger, Vasilevsky, Bob, and Saros, I think is who I would we name for like
I would say
like
that Saros
highlight.
maybe not this year, but Bob certainly has been showing up that way. And Ottinger, that's what we expect from Ottinger. That's why I think wherever you rank Ottinger, you have to rank Blackwood, in my opinion. But I agree. I think also helps that Winnipeg is that defensively sound, the very strong defensive team over the last few years. So it helps him to be in position so much, so he
Yeah.
doesn't have to make the highlight reel saves. And so I just want to make sure we clarify that it's not that Blackwood is out of position. It's just that his team sometimes puts him in a bad position,
Yeah.
and he still makes
Yeah.
the saves.
No, the Avalanche are definitely just the way they play their offense. And I want to give credit to the Jets. We talked about it early on in the podcast as to like why the Jets are succeeding. That has not changed. They still are scoring. Like the Jets are scoring and just scoring consistently. But the way that the two teams' offenses work, I think, are fundamentally different. Avalanche are definitely more high-flying barn burner. They're the fastest team in the league, so that's the way they play. And sometimes that speed kills. Movie reference. Hey, jerk, speed kills. You know the movie, Dom?
I know the reference. Why can't I think of the movie right now?
I'll let you think
drawing a
about
blank.
it. I don't want to give it away in case anybody in the comments wants to guess, but it is a horror classic. Anyway, yeah. So you're totally right.
Okay.
Oh.
You just
You know?
should I spoil it or should
Yeah,
we
go
let them
for it
have
if you know. If you know.
Ooh, is it Halloween?
It is Halloween. Very well done. It is Halloween.
It took me a minute because I was like, I'm just like, I know it. It's at the tip of my tongue, and I was just like, oh, why can't I? And then it came to me. But yeah, no. Anyway, yeah, what you're saying about the Avs, though, back on topic, is speed kills, but it can sometimes be a backfire, right? If
Yeah, that's
you
what I'm
are
saying.
high flying, you're taking on more risk, and so there's higher risk, higher reward. So it's flashier all around, but it does. You need a goaltender who can be flashy behind. Like the Avs would not be as successful with Hellebuck as they are with Mackenzie Blackwood, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I mean. Getting back to the game here, though, that was a fun side tangent. Like, we got to give love to Mackenzie Blackwood, and I will do it forever and ever. I'm so glad we have him locked up for 5 years. And then Nabokov can come, and that's going to be an absolutely fucking killer tandem after Scott Wedgwood moves on.
Oh,
Even though I love Scott, but Nabokov. Anyway, so this was Oliver Chillington's first game back after being injured. He's only played, I think, 8 games this season before he got injured. So brutal luck for him, who had been fighting so hard to come back from injuries. Nice that he could come back against Calgary. They gave him a round of applause, which was very nice because it's where he spent most of his career. But I'm not going to dice it. He looked awful. I mean, awful. He had some terrible, terrible turnovers, particularly inside the Avalanche's own zone. And I mean, this first period, as I said, this was just the Flames period. And when you're looking at Kadri, who's their number one guy play, even at 34, makes you miss him even more. You kind of wish that the Avalanche would have just paid the man, and then we wouldn't have had to deal with the carousel of second line centers. Ooga booga. Anyway, they had another penalty kill to to end the period. And to me, they needed to get it together fast. But then with the penalty kill, you get to watch Logan O'Connor, who's one of those guys who's just a beast. And he's doing things that don't necessarily appear on the score sheet, but you can see it with your eyes, just how much impact he has on the penalty kill and in the dirty areas of the ice. He's going along the boards. He's winning battles. He's chipping it up the ice. He's getting the puck away from opponents. He's hunting them down. He's just that gritty guy. And then to end the period, the Avalanche actually went crossbar and in from a nice feed from Druin to Malinsky. except it was offsides. And so we left the first period down 0-1. It was not great. Well, the nice part was going into period 2, Cale Makar got the equalizer very, very early. And I mean, overall, this second period, it was the Avalanche's period. And I don't know what was said in the locker room, but clearly the message was received because the top line cycled the Flames for, I think, almost a minute and a half or more to get the second goal of the game. And then the second line went and cycled the Flames. Like I said, total 180 from the first period. And from then on, the Avalanche were just in the Flames zone. If it left the zone, it immediately came back in. And when the Avalanche did eventually get their own power play, it looked much better than it did against Vancouver. It was getting pucks to the net, kept in the zone, just didn't quite go in just yet. And really, this period just flew by. It was high event, at least in terms of the Avalanche, and at least in terms for the Avalanche. And that made me feel like the Flames were going to come out to the third with more pushback. But I mean, if the Avalanche just kept playing the way that they did in the second, they really wouldn't have a problem. And I will say, just spoiling it a little bit, is the third period was kind of like both teams' period. It was a trade back and forth. First period was Flames, second period was Avs, third period was kind of right in the middle. But I admired the fact in the second here that in the final 2 minutes that the Avalanche were just putting on pressure. And Marty Necas just continues to shoot the puck. Like, literally an insanely high shot volume. I think in the 2 games with Calgary and Edmonton, I think he had close to 15 shots on goal, which is just, Dom, is there a good way you could put into perspective, like, even if you're not going in, like, for a player to have, first of all, like 3 shots on goal in a game is good. So to have like 12 to 15 between 2 games is just a monstrous effort.
Well, yeah, absolutely, especially when you're sharing the ice with guys like McKinnon, who also are going to get theirs and eat, and Makar, these are guys who are going to shoot. So trying to be above average on your number of shots in general is hard when you don't always have the puck, when you have other people who are shooting. I do think it's like any sport, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And a lot of guys are tentative. They don't shoot. It's been a problem we've talked about with the Sharks sometimes. So take the chance. Shoot the puck. Good things happen when you throw the puck at the net, be it rebounds, be it deflections. Sometimes it just goes in. You know, all I can say is it is always added value to shoot at the net. And that is something that not enough guys do, have the confidence to do, have the balls to do, whatever you want to say it is. That not enough of the guys do it. And if Marty Necas is doing that, then that is, I still think over and over again, it is looking like a really good move for the Avalanche. And whenever you talk about Marty, I'm like, damn, this is the type of guy the Sharks need because they are tentative and they don't shoot the puck enough. So I'm here being supportive and happy for you, man, but I'm a little jealous.
How could you not be, though? I mean, this dude's been insane, and it's nice that you say that because on this power play to end the period, Nathan MacKinnon, I mean, it was right on the end of the period. Nathan MacKinnon gets the one-timer and banks it right off of Marty Necas' stick and into the back of the net, which was absolutely massive that the boys go into the third up by 2. You were scared because going into the beginning of the second period, the Avs hadn't scored in 80 minutes or 4 periods of hockey, just going back to that Vancouver game, even more if you go back to the previous game. So you worry with a hot rookie goaltender like, you know, Wolf, that you're in danger. So the fact that not only did the Avalanche break through, but they put in the work, generated positivity, and left with the 2-goal lead. And that's exactly what you wanted to see. However, the end of the period,
3-goal swing. It's
exactly.
a 3-goal swing. That's more than just 2 goals. It's the fact that you started down 1 and you ended +2.
Yep.
So that. I mean, that might not sound like a lot to people if you just look at the score on the scoreboard, but that is a huge swing in momentum. That is, I mean, think of it this way. If the Flames own the first period, you only gave up 1 goal, and then the Avs own the second period, and they scored at least 3 here. I don't know if I don't remember if the Flames scored and if the Avs actually scored 4, but point being is you own that period and you did better with the period you owned and didn't lose as much while being owned, if you will. So it's a huge show, and it would be a good sign for the third period, even if it is back and forth.
And that's the whole thing is even in the games that the Avalanche lose, the defense does still look great. It's just a matter of the offense getting going. So it's great that they did here. Fortunately, at the end of the third or second period, I don't know if he ended up coming back, but Joel Farabee ended up like getting hurt in a really weird way. It just seemed like such an incidental collision that it didn't really look like anything, but Evidently, he was hurt. I don't know if he ended up coming back, but you always hope that somebody is okay. Well, to start the period 3, the top line was buzzing again going into it. And if you wanted to nitpick this game and also the game against Edmonton, is you'd like to see depth scoring. But are you really going to complain when the big boys are buzzing? I mean, that's the whole thing with this Avalanche top line. When they're going, they're going. And I'm never going to tell them not to do that. So when I'm not really going to complain if the top boys are just, if they're going. Now, in the beginning of the
Can
third.
I actually say something about that really quick before we move on, and then you can move on to the third? Because I just think the Avs being a high-paced team, they are also a really extremely well-conditioned team. I think it's not even that they're double shifting, but their top line can pull more minutes per game than other top lines on other teams, which that inherently takes away more opportunities for your depth guys to be on the ice in general, let alone score.
True.
So if the top guys are playing more, they're gonna score more, and that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. That doesn't mean the Avs are failing to get depth scoring. It just means they have an overperformance from their top line. It should be something that is complimented as a good thing, not maligned.
Yes. Now, the Avs did continue to do a good job of keeping Calgary out of their zone. And I feel like they did this for the majority of the third period, but Calgary did end up pushing back, getting more chances, but the Avs bent but didn't break. And it felt like some good defensive work. But to me, best defense is more offense. And the Flames did start to get a cycle going in this period, and started having the Avs in their own zone. But Malinsky intercepts down low and feeds an utterly gorgeous pass to Marty Necas for a breakaway goal. Marty Party. Necas had 3 points in this game with 2 goals. And this is how you respond after the Vancouver game. I mean, it was gorgeous. Did you happen to see this goal, Dom?
I unfortunately did not, but I look forward to you sending it to me
I'm
now.
I'm about to send it to you literally right now. Let me mute this tab so we don't have any sound coming through. Oh my God, yeah. Wait, do they show the pass? No, they don't show the pass in this video. Hold on. You gotta see the fuck.
Hey, we love a good assist, especially if it's a nice pass that's just perfectly well timed.
Such a good pass. Well, anyway, we'll keep moving here, and I'll show it to you here in a moment. But anyway, to me, this is how you responded after Vancouver. The Flames did get kind of a shitty one back late from Anderson, who just shoots it right between Blackwood's legs. That's not one you want to see go through. Blackwood definitely wanted it back. You could tell he was not happy with it, nor should he have been. It was not good. But I mean, overall, you're not going to complain too much because it was in garbage time. It was in garbage time of the game. It really didn't matter at that point. But, sucks that another one snuck through. But, you lead by 3. Or you were leading by 3. You don't stress about it too much. Just play intelligently. He unfortunately didn't get a chance for the hat trick. The Flames really did a good job of pressing with the extra man, but ultimately ended it with an Avalanche win to lead us right into the next night against the Edmonton Oilers in Edmonton. And they actually started Mackenzie Blackwood again. They started in both games.
Of a back-to-back?
Yes, they did.
Wow. I mean, maybe just to keep his head up, because I get it for a goaltender giving up 5-hole goals, which is, again, between the legs. For those of you who don't know, the 5-hole is, if you think about the 5 gaps, if you think over and under the arms, and then also in between the legs are the 5 gaps that you can shoot for. And so the between the legs is called the 5-hole. So you've heard us say that possibly. But what I can say is that I think it can be hard for a goalie sometimes to have that happen, and to they're just frustrating. So I maybe it helped to get his head right, but trying to play out a back-to-back and against Vancouver, or excuse me, not against Vancouver, against Edmonton of all people, that's a tough match.
Here's my thought as to why. There's 2 reasons. One, Scott Wedgwood was clearly still dealing with an injury, a minor one, because they reassigned Trent Miner, our AHL call-up, after the break happened. So clearly he's fine, but he just couldn't get better on this road trip. So they had Trent Miner. They definitely didn't want to start Trent Miner against Edmonton, which I understand.
Fair enough.
And also, you had the break coming up. So it's like, yeah, he's getting worked out for 2 games in a row, but then he gets 2 weeks off. So in my mind, if it was a different situation where you had more games coming up after the fact, then yeah, you'd be a little bit, you'd question it a little bit. But with the fact that they had the 2-week break due to the 4 nations, like, that's fine to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point. You also, like you said, don't want to start effectively your third string against an offense as potent as Edmonton, especially in those games are similar to 4-point games with the way they are in the playoff hunt. But can we just say that with all this talk of Blackwood, how big of a snub he is from the 4 nations? Because Canada should be having him as like
Canada should have
on their roster, but he should be like their starter possibly.
Canada should have him, Logan Thompson, and Darcy Kemper as their 3 goaltenders. But instead, we have Jordan Binnington, Aiden Hill, and Sam Montembeault. All of which, I think, except for Aiden Hill, have save percentages below 900. What are we doing?
I mean, I like to call Jordan Binnington Jordan Bitchington because of how much whining he is out there. Like, and this isn't me being my classic punny dad joke. I think he's just a whiny, like, annoying player that you just don't really want to get behind. Plus, he plays for the Blues, so fuck that. But Montembeault, I kind of shat on when the Sharks played against him. So without a shadow of a doubt, Mackenzie Blackwood is better than any of those guys, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
And you're right. Canada needs to figure out their
I don't know who's making those
their
choices.
goaltending. Yeah.
But here is the goal, Dom. If you're ready to see that, let me know when you are in here.
Show me. Let's see this live time.
All right, you seeing it? Okay.
Yep. Coming
here
through
is
clear.
The pass. Off the boards, up the ice. There's Nate just ready to go. Boom! Roofs it.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely
clean.
Gorgeous. If y'all
it looks like he's shooting pool out there with that pass.
Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Whoop! Because, of course, Sam Malinsky had his goal taken off the board earlier. He's got to hit Nate just with that absolutely sexy feed. I don't know why Natchez was all the way up there, but clearly he was in the right place at the right time. Awesome, awesome, awesome stuff. Yeah. Love that. All right. So
we'll play. Let's submit it for assist of the week. I don't know if that's a thing, but
we could certainly do it. But yes, now it is time for, and we'll run through this one a little faster since we kind of had some side tangents there. The Avs versus Edmonton. So this game certainly could be nominated for Barn Burner of the Year. The final score was 5-4 Avs. And my God, you love this game if you're a fan of hockey. You hate this game if you are Jared Bednar or me, as a matter of fact. And I think the goal for this game for the Avalanche was to not let Edmonton hang in their zone, like at all. Fucking D-zone, goodbye. Do everything you can to get it out, because the last time these two teams played is the Oilers just hemmed the Avs in their zone for 2 minutes plus, and then they scored. So for the Avs, they had to do what the Oilers did to them or beat them off the rush, then defend. Let me tell you, that did not happen. We beat them off the rush. The defense was optional this evening. And to the Avalanche's credit, and this was the case throughout the whole game, and I was worried that it wouldn't be, but they had a lot of energy to start this game, which on a back-to-back is impressive, but the Oilers matched that energy. And, you know, it took a full 60 to beat the Oilers team. And I do feel like ultimately the Avalanche put that together. But in this first period, there was no whistles for nearly 7 minutes, minus an icing or two. The first line was buzzing again, and Natchez and McKinnon were continuing some magic. But really, all the lines were noticeable up to this point. I mean, everyone was seeking to get pucks on Skinner. It was a little bit of a loosey-goosey game the whole time, as we'll eventually find out. But, you know, a lot of high offense. But, I mean, you don't want to be loosey-goosey against a high offense Oilers team who always seem to have a crafty play getting in behind and in your back door. Pause.
Pause. Well, while we're paused, just really quick, let me drop these numbers on you.
Sure.
The Avs are in the wild card with 68 points right now, just 2 behind getting into the fight with the Central. Edmonton at the top of the Pacific is tied with Vegas at 72. So the fourth team in the Central is a mere 4 points behind the top team in the Pacific. This is a truly balanced matchup. Just looking at it, and that tells you, like, I know Corey has talked about it, but just so you can put some numbers to it, just how much better the Central has been this year. Like, in a really good West, the Central has been wild.
Oh no, it's insane. And I mean, to the Oilers' credit, they jump on guys, and I note this throughout the entire game. So just take a lot of these notes from the first really persisted throughout the entire game. The Oilers jump on guys fast. If you want a second to pass the puck, they will not give it to you. Now, to start this game, they mentioned that McKinnon is 17 points away from 1,000. Well, as of today, McKinnon is now only 14 points away from 1,000. So we here at the Captain Avalanche Fancast will keep you updated on McKinnon's hunt for 1,000, because let me tell you, he's at 87 points. He certainly will be hitting that 1,000 goal, or not 1,000 goal. Oh my God. 1,000 point plateau this season. You can almost count on it. Now, the problem with this game the entire time is it was very, as a friend of mine described it, call and response. The Avalanche could not hold the lead for more than 30 seconds. The Oilers tie. The Avs go ahead. The Oilers tie. Here in the first, it was a 2-2 hockey game. And let me tell you, if you wanted high-flying and exciting hockey, this was the game for it. The Avs got cycled a little bit. And I mean, I'm happy because goal scoring is important. It's how you win. But to me, there needed to be a more concentrated effort on defense. The Oilers are also quick, and they're getting behind the Avs' D to set up odd man rushes and beating the Avalanche in transition. Now, going into period 2, the Oilers actually pulled Stuart Skinner because the Avalanche ended up leaving period 1 with a lead of 3-2. And I didn't think his start was bad. He let in 3 on 12, and I mean, it really wasn't anybody's best start, but I was surprised, and I didn't get to read. There was apparently an explanation as to why, so I'm not going to make any speculation as to why they pulled him, but clearly there was a reason. It was a little odd. And of course, as I mentioned, the energy throughout this entire game was very high. Every time these two teams play each other, this is pretty much how they look, whether it is high or low scoring. Genuinely, this is how it goes every time. There is rarely ever a blowout win from either side, and man, do I hate it. I just want the Avs to beat this team. But anyway, the problem was the Avalanche started taking penalties against this Oilers team, who, may I remind you, has the #1 power play unit in the league. And it was a shock that we managed to kill the penalties last time this team met, because really, this Oilers team does such a good job cycling at 5-on-5. It's even shittier when you're down a man. And really, the discipline has not been great by the Avs lately, especially in these last 2 games that we're talking about. It ended up really starting to do more harm than good, even though the PK was great. Now, Tom, I don't know if you've ever looked at Chris Knobloch, but a little bit of an aside here. Why is it that every time the camera shows Chris Knobloch, it looks like he's either been served divorce papers or is serving them to someone else and is trying his best to act like he's not phased?
I mean, is RBF too basic of an answer?
It's not resting bitch face, though. It's just, he looks like so, not sad, but just concerned. But just like he just got bad news, but he's not.
Let's call it disappointed dad face.
I guess. And he just always looks that way. I just don't know what to make of it. Well, now on our PK, we ended up getting, first of all, what's shitty is Corey Perry scored 2 goals in this game. You never want to see that happen, because I hate Corey Perry. He sucks. But he ended up scoring later on this power play, which is shitty because we got a shorthanded goal. Here, let me say it how I noted it here. Shorthanded goal alert! That's going to be funny because I already know I'm going to add the yeah, anyway. And I said, it's our PP now. There was so much that happened on this play. Bouchard had an ugly turnover to Parker Kelly, who had the wherewithal to see Makar coming up. Makar roofs it. And I'm going to show you the replay, Dom. You see Evan Bouchard just give up on the back check. Makar hadn't even shot it yet, and he just quit. I'm gonna show you. You need to see exactly what I'm talking about here. So,
And yet he's paid in the same league as Makar.
mm-hmm,
Shaking my head.
So
that's just a bad move by them. They're lost.
Sorry, are you in here?
I see a red screen.
You see a red screen. Why do you see a red screen? Okay. If I hit play, can you see the replay here?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Perfect. Okay, let's restart this replay. So we have Evan Bouchard retrieving it after the Avs had just cleared, going to make the back pass to Connor McDavid. Parker Kelly intercepts.
I remember this one.
And then you have him pass it to Makar. Boom. Now let's watch Bouchard on the back check here, because obviously super excited on the Cale Makar goal. But I mean, oh my God, what is he doing? Okay, hold on. Wait,
can we count his mistakes? Because the lazy drop pass was the first mistake.
Yeah, so here we go. Goes to give it to McDavid, not paying attention to Kelly. So then here he comes back. Here he is on the back check. Here's Makar. Stop skating. Right here, he is stop skating. Makar hadn't even shot the puck. Why are you stopping?
Yeah, he's just coasting, and then he gets here and does the ratty, I'm going to slap the puck out in anger.
And then he's all mad. Like, dude, you quit. You quit on the play.
You fucked up and let the play happen, and then you quit on it. And so not only did you cause the problem, but you hung your team out to dry afterward.
Terrible. Now, the Oilers, once again, take away every bit of time and space that you have. It felt like there were 30 dudes on the ice at any given time. The problem is that the Avalanche could have easily stayed ahead in this game if they quit taking penalties. They took 4 up to this point by the second period. It's just unacceptable. And these Oilers have insane acceleration. They also kept letting Leon Draisaitl score. And I genuinely despise games like this when it's my team, when scoring 4 goals isn't enough and the other team just keeps getting goals back, especially against Edmonton. I hate this. I'm going to say it right now. I hate Edmonton the most. All right. They are my least liked team. I hate fucking Edmonton. I hate losing to them. I don't like the Edmonton Oilers, and I'm not sorry about it.
I mean, yeah, I get it, because, you said it before. When those two teams hit the ice, you don't have Rantanen on there. So it used to be 5 of the best 10 players in the world. But let's just say between those two rosters, you have 4 of the top 10 players in the world. Yeah. We're not going to argue where they are ranked. I mean, you could possibly argue that they're 4 of the top 5 players in the world today.
Yeah.
So it's not an unreasonable argument. I'm just saying 10. So the other hockey fans who have their own superstars on their own teams, we're gonna leave it up there for open debate. But the fact is that it's gonna be fireworks no matter what. It is gonna be stressful. It is gonna be an edge of your seat back and forth game, like you said, Corey. But no one's gonna come out and blow out the other one, and it is gonna be set the over under at 9 or 10 goals, because that's what it's gonna take, no matter who's in net for these teams either, because it's just the amount of talent, the offensive firepower on both teams. It's going to be stressful. As a neutral fan watching, if you are not like a diehard Avs fan or an Oilers fan, and you watch this game, those are the games to watch. It's like a playoff game every time these teams meet in the regular season.
Yeah. Now, I've actually been going for a little while here, so I'm going to wrap this one up. You really wanted a depth goal, but it didn't happen. And the Avalanche ended up with a 5-on-3 after Bouchard, or as my friend called him, Douche-Shart, argued an elbow to the head of Devon Toews. He literally elbows him in the face and then gets mad that the ref calls him for elbowing Devon in the head. But sure, man, you totally didn't do it. It just felt like the puck kept landing on the Oilers' stick. The Avalanche couldn't take advantage of the 5-on-3, which was ridiculous. You should convert on that every time. And they ended up giving up the puck very easily. And yet somehow Devon Toews sets up a great play for McKinnon to get a 2-on-1. His first shot gets rebounded, lands back on his stick. Marty Necas speeds his way up the ice, is in the perfect spot to tap in the tiebreaker. Let's go home, baby. Nathan McKinnon had 7 points in 24 hours. Marty Necas had, I think, 5 in that time. And
wow.
This was an MVP battle, and you'd think that it'd be between McKinnon and McDavid, but no. It was an MVP battle between Nathan McKinnon and Leon Draisaitl. I mean, Leon has been the best player on the Oilers this year. I don't think anybody would disagree with me on that assertion. And I'm very happy that it feels like the year, and this is not to disparage Connor McDavid at all, that I would hope that when they release the top 20 players or centers list for this year, that it isn't an easy it's still Connor McDavid. I don't feel like you can say that right now. I don't feel like this year definitively that Connor McDavid has been the best player in the NHL. I think the argument this year comes down to between Nathan McKinnon and Leon Draisaitl. I really do.
Well, and let me just posit this. We're not going too much into the Four Nations, but at practice for Team Canada, McKinnon lining up as center for line 1, McDavid lining up as center for line 2.
They did change that. McDavid is now center for line 1, I would like to say.
Well,
they did change it. So
that's dumb.
Again, that's not to disparage McDavid.
We're not disparaging McDavid. Like, Canada is fucking stacked. So it's you could be on the fourth line of Canada and you're still better than anybody that the Sharks have starting this year. At least in this year. I mean, Celebrini will get there, but you know what I mean.
We will get into some Four Nations hype here in a little bit, but Dom, I did watch the beginning of the Sharks and the Stars contest where your boys jumped out to a very strong start to one of the West's stronger competitors. That strong start was short-lived, however. A small week in terms of actual games played, but no less eventful, that is for sure. But I hope you can find some serenity in suffering, but I know you have something unique planned for us this week. So it's time for live and on location at the Denver Aquarium in the Tank with Dom.
Well, thanks, Corey, for the special introduction. And yes, I am so excited to be bringing you this In the Tank segment. Maybe I'm not actually on location. I'll let you guys speculate about that one as you listen online.
He's actually inside the fish tank right now.
Don't tell anybody. They'll get me in trouble. I like swimming with the fishies. Comes in my Italian bloodline.
Oh my God, what the wait, we're not just gonna skirt by that pun that you just made a mafia joke sleeping with the fish. I don't like you, bro. Go on.
You're fired. You hate that you love it. You hate that you love it. You hate that I love The Sopranos.
I'm finding a new co-host.
Say what you will, but I'm the best at sneaking those in there. You never let them get away. You always catch them, but I'll always keep slipping them in there. Because it's plenty of fun too. Fishing for a response from you maybe can be my last pun. But in all seriousness, I did want to bring you this segment that is from the Denver Aquarium, because for this, I would like to talk about what made the Avs rebuild successful under Jared Bednar and under Joe Sakic in his executive role, and how the Sharks can follow in their footsteps to go from one of the league's worst teams to the actual apex of the league and win a Stanley Cup final. Now, as you know, Corey, Bednar took over in August of 2016, so that would have been before the 2016-17 season. And in this season, unfortunately, I'm sorry to put you through this pain, but we saw the Avs finish 30th in the NHL in the absolute basement, because lest we forget, the Seattle Kraken was not a team.
I was going to say, neither Vegas nor Seattle existed. 30th was dead last back then.
Yes, but what was good for the Avalanche is because of finishing dead last, guess who they drafted in 2017? For those of you listening, because I know Corey is about to fire off the answer.
Yeah. So, I'm actually going to get into a little bit of some hockey knowledge real quickly. Is the lower you finish, the higher your chances of landing the first overall draft pick is, because the NHL runs off of a draft lottery system. So the lower you finish in the standings, the higher your percentage are of getting that first overall game-changing pick, right? So the Avalanche had the best chance of getting it. And if they didn't get the first overall, they obviously had the best chance of getting the second, third, whatever. The Avalanche somehow, after finishing with a league worst 48 points on the season, ended up with the fourth overall pick. And you're like, well, what the fuck? Well, ladies and gentlemen, with that fourth overall pick, the Avalanche would draft the best defenseman in the NHL, probably going to be the best defenseman in history. Woo!
Exactly. Thank you, Corey, for adding that as well about the draft lottery. That is much different from the draft in other sports. So just something to be mindful as you are, if you are a new fan getting into the NHL. But this was, I said it, this was the first great move under Bednar. I know he's not necessarily the one making decisions of who to draft, but in his tenure, this is the first great and probably the greatest move the organization made because it was the perfect piece to add to the young core of superstars McKinnon and Rantanen, which, lest we forget, Rantanen was a rookie in this 2016-17 season, and McKinnon was only in his second or third year in the league, I want to say.
Third.
Third. So these guys were still very young, and it takes time. This doesn't happen right away. And why do I highlight this? Well, because this is what the Sharks need to find. They now have Celebrini, Will Smith, William Eklund and Will Smith. I almost flipped their names there. They're both Will, but one goes by the full, the other one goes by the abbreviation.
Yes.
Anyway, these are the young superstars of the Sharks' future. This is going to be their offensive core. Eklund has been in the league a couple of years now for the Sharks. Celebrini and Will Smith both starting out this year despite being drafted in consecutive years. But like the Avs, the Sharks are going to finish at, if not at the bottom of the NHL, and if not at, they will be very near the bottom of the NHL if they can rally some here as it comes into the end. So it's not like these guys are going to fix it right away. A couple superstars does not a team make, and it does take time to build and find the right combination of guys around these young players. The Avs also, despite having these amazing draft picks with the hits with McKinnon, Rantanen, Makar, the Avs are a team that can exemplify that the draft is not perfect for building a team. I mean, Corey, I don't want to take you on this, and maybe you can push back on this a little bit, but in general, from what I saw of all of their picks for 2018, 2020, and 2021, those drafts have had really no-hit successes.
Are you referring to the Sharks or the Avs?
The Avalanche's draft.
And I think the only reason why is because for the Avalanche, the core is so well rounded out. And I think it has to do with what mode they're in, because the Avalanche are in win now. So the draft is not nearly as critical as it is for a team like the Sharks. But I do argue that the draft is where you build your core. We've seen it time and time again. You cannot build a core in free agency. Just ask the Nashville Predators. You can't do it. And I think the Dallas Stars are a great example on how to draft correctly and build your core through that. So, I mean, drafting, I think, is how you build your core. The only reason
You're
that
100% right.
The only reason that the Avalanche's draft prospects haven't hit in recent years is because, one, they're hardly picking in the first round ever because they've traded a lot of their first round picks, but also that they don't need those people right now. But they do still have a few good ones in the pipeline.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. But what I was going to say here is you're correct. They did do a lot of trading. But something they did right is they traded to have 2 picks in the first half of the 2019 first round. And with those 2 picks, they took Bowen Byram and Alex Newhook. And while neither of those players are the superstars that Rantanen, McKinnon, Makar are, neither of them were groundbreaking players, but they were both mainstays on the roster in that 2021-22 Cup run. They were consistent contributors. They brought value. And why I want to highlight this is not all first-round draft picks are the same. And from what I've seen, and I haven't done a full enough research, so maybe I'll bring this to you at a later time. Maybe this is something when we get to the playoffs or even early on in the summer before the draft. Well, we shall see. But from what I've heard, this draft is not the most deep or strongest draft upcoming here for 2025. And so a lot of times a late first round pick might as well be more like a second round pick. It is not a sure thing. And even when you draft guys at the top of the first round, there's no such thing as a sure thing, especially when you're drafting guys when they are so young. But what is important here is the way the Avs traded so they could have 2 top 15 draft picks overall in the draft. I think that is huge. And what I take from this is something that I think the Sharks need to do. The Sharks do need to part with assets to trade up into the first round like this past year to get better value. What did the Sharks do? They ended up flipping picks and going all the way up to have pick number 1 and pick number 10. And I can only hope that Sam Dickinson, who is shredding the the OHL in the Ontario Hockey League as an amazing defenseman, I hope he can be the Sharks' Cale Makar, because this kid is averaging like 1.5-ish or 1.3, something like that, points per game as a defenseman. So I hope he can be our game-breaking defenseman because Lord knows the Sharks need defense. But what did they do there? They traded up. They moved their assets around, and some of these assets came from the Carlson trade. Excuse me, the Eric Carlson trade from back a few years ago. And this has been parlayed in overtime, trading, moving to not only draft first overall in this past draft, but 10th. And so that is what I think the Sharks need to do again this year, because Corey, as you know, the Sharks being in last place are currently looking at the best odds for the #1 overall pick for a second year in a row. But from the trade and from what I talked about last week with the Mikael Granlund and Cody Ceci trade, they also hold a projected late first rounder that belongs to Dallas. What I think needs to happen is they need to create a package and they need to flip this later pick to move up into the first round, or that what they need to do is use this later first round pick that is not a sure thing and trade it as part of a package to a team for somebody who's already in the NHL, a young defensive star that is up and coming that can help accelerate the rebuild. Now, there's been some talk, and I know Corey, you and I had hinted about this, but I don't. It would obviously take a lot. This would be a big package, but I would love to see if the Sharks could, if they aren't able to move up in the draft and build through the draft like we're talking about, I would love to see them build a package with this late first rounder. Let's say it's going to be anywhere between 25 and 32 for Dallas depending on how they finish this year. I would love to see that pick get traded away and maybe go after someone like a Quinn Hughes, like a Josh Morrissey, or is it John Morrissey? These younger Josh Morrissey. Okay, so I had it right the first time. But these younger defensive stars, because what do the Sharks need? They need defense, but they need some offensive-minded defensemen. They need depth everywhere, but we see the core of the offense starting to build. There's a lot of guys already in the pipeline that are exciting. And yeah, the Sharks are going to continue to draft offense, but they've got their goaltender of the future. They have 2 of their centers for the future. They've got 1 of their wingers for their top. They've got 3 of their top 6 already figured out. It's time to look at defense. And so that, Corey, I would love your input on this and see if maybe one is better than the other. But wouldn't you agree that that second first rounder, if you will, that late first rounder from Dallas should be a great bargaining chip and should not be used by the Sharks in this draft?
No, absolutely. Because, I mean, Mike Grier, first of all, is a fucking wizard. That man, he's drafts incredibly well, as we have already seen. And he facilitates really great trades. He takes undervalued assets. He buys low and he sells high. And I mean, he's done that with Blackwood. He's now done that with Granlund. I mean, the dude has done fantastic with flipping assets for more to help strengthen the team. Even if it doesn't feel like a popular move right away, like Blackwood and Granlund, you can see it ultimately benefiting the team in the future. Now, in terms of defense, just listening back to your rants about the Sharks, that definitely does feel like your biggest need right now. And I mean, if we're looking at today's NHL, that's what it is. It's shifting more towards an offensive-minded defenseman. And I mean, the 2-3 best defensemen in the world, Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes, Zach Werenski, they're all offensive-minded people who can also still play solid fucking defense. Now, I will say, for the Sharks' sake, I don't know if you could make the splash with Quinn Hughes, although there is always a chance, as we've seen with the Mikko Rantanen trade. Who the hell knows? But I think actually in this current season, the Sharks could have a chance of landing somebody like Noah Dobson or Bo Byram, both of whom are supposedly trade chips for their teams. I think foolishly so. Noah Dobson is the Islanders' young offensive-minded defenseman who has been really great, especially last year. And then Bo Byram has been having a actually really productive year with Buffalo, as I've seen. But, you know, I think it'd be foolish of either of these teams to trade these pieces, but Buffalo is managed by like the worst management of all time. So it would not surprise me. And Lou Lamoriello is really old. So it would also not surprise me if he made that kind of mistake. But ultimately what I'm getting at is there are, I think, some of those high-end defensive players who are already established that the Sharks could take a swing at with the assets they've accumulated through Mike Grier's hard work.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple things there you definitely hit the nail on the head with is, well, first of all, my one concern is in a player poll, the Sharks finished as a top 5 worst location, like a place that they would not want to be traded to or that they would include in a no trade clause, and that was voted by all players around the league.
I wonder
So it is
why.
tough, even with Celebrini, to draw talent. It was something like the worst place to be traded to was Winnipeg, ironically, because there's nothing to do for quality of life outside of just playing hockey in Winnipeg. However, they still have been able to resign their guys. So the guys who are committed to the team are staying for the long haul. But that place has 45% of the NHL says that is their least favorite place to go, or the one place they would put in a no trade clause. At third place overall out of all 32 NHL teams, the Sharks come in with 8.7% of responses saying that they would not want to be traded to the Sharks. So it's a steep drop off
I was going to
be there
say
in third place.
that's a difference.
Yeah, that is a big difference, but it is still up there. It is still on the back of people's minds that they don't really want to be in San Jose. Now, I do think that Celebrini being there and Askarov, there is a path to the future. There is a vision of the future. It is like having a young quarterback on a football team when you're like, okay, there's that piece. We can build around him. Free agents for the other positions will want to come, and that's how it is here. When you have a young pitcher in baseball, any of these other sports, for if you're new to hockey, trying to create a metaphor, something similar to understand that these young superstars can be a bargaining chip or can draw guys, especially then when a team like the Sharks has plenty of cap space that they can get paid more here. And so that's where I hope maybe they could. I think you gave great examples with like Bo Byram, for example. I think that would be a great fit for the Sharks to go after. And I would love to see it happen because like you said, well, let's just say quickly for Buffalo, if Mike Greer is buying low and selling high, Buffalo has a way of buying high and selling low. They just have a way of depreciating their own assets. Like anybody who is affiliated with Buffalo just has their value tank. But good news is we live in the tank, so we're here for it, and we'll take advantage of it if they will let us. But that's what I think needs to happen because the thing is that you can have all these prospects, but who's going to lead them? Like you can have these Shakir Mukmadulin and Thompson that the Sharks already have, and hopefully we will see Dickinson next year. But they're young and it's going to take time to come up to speed. If the Sharks are wanting to accelerate this rebuild and get it going early while their superstars are young, while Askarov is still young so that everybody hits their prime at the same time, they can't keep drafting young defensemen who will be coming up too late. At some point, they are going to have to trade for some of these pieces and find the right veterans to build around. That's why I was so sad about the loss of Granlund. I do think it's a major loss for the team. Still a great trade. But it's going to hurt, I think, because he was such a good leader, and he was leading in so many stat lines for the Sharks. That's a huge value to be willing to give up, and it's another bold move from Greer. And I'd really quickly do want to give Greer his flowers as well, because like you said, he has been a really, really talented, smart, just smooth operator when it comes to the GM's office, where even like his worst trade, let's say the fact that he got Cody Ceci from the Oilers for a 3rd round pick, and the worst he could get, if you consider Granlund being worth the 1st rounder, and if you say Ceci gets the 2nd pick part of that deal with Dallas, it's a conditional 3rd, so it's a 3rd or 4th rounder. So the worst thing he did is maybe move back around in the draft. And or you could still argue that's part of it, and maybe Granlund was worth a 2nd, and so that that all evens out. Anyway, point being, even in his trade that was like maybe his worst trade, his loss, the value was still there. It was still a good trade for the team to have a stable defenseman, a top, well, I mean, a guy who should be playing as a 2nd pairing, who was serviceable on the top pairing, and that's we just need to recognize that. Like you said, Greer is doing the right things, and that's why I think this rebuild can be successful, and they do need to just find the right people to sign around. They've got Toffoli for the next few years, but they need to find some veterans. I'd say maybe in the experienced free agents, preferably defensemen between the ages of like 25 and 29. These guys who are in their prime or coming into their prime, who can help mentor the younger core, but aren't going to be too far off the timeline for the full-on rebuild. So they have that experience. They've showed they are good consummate professionals, and not only that, they are going to need to find a better goaltender, because I don't expect to see either Vitek Vanacek or Alexander Georgiev with the Sharks next year. And unlike the Avalanche, though, when the Avalanche went on, I just want to take this back to the Avalanche's 21-22 Cup run. They did this with 2 31-year-old goalies. And yes, these were Darcy Kemper and Pavel Francouz, and both had a save percentage well above 900 for the entire season.
Pavel was the GOAT! I love Pavel.
Yeah, and you still had Darcy Kemper, but they were both 31. Nobody was talking about these guys as top 5 goalies in the league. But they were serviceable. They did the job. And right now the Sharks have these 29-year-old goaltenders who are playing like ass. And so they need to go out there and they do need to sign a better backup goalie. They need to pay him a little bit more. They need their Scott Wedgwood, Corey. That's what they need.
Yeah.
They need the goalie that you pay to be better than just a backup, who can be a mentor but knows that he is going to take a backseat to Askarov and okay with that because Askarov is that future gem. And that is an advantage the Sharks have in this rebuild that the Avs did not have, because the Avs pick of Justus Annunen that happened during this time period, he did not pan out. So in a sense, the Sharks have a jump start in some areas, and they just need to start building that core. If Dickinson can turn into the Makar, before you know it, the Sharks might be there. But they really do, going back to it, need to add these experienced free agents and maybe overpay a little bit, because they have the cap space right now and they don't have to give the big extensions to Celebrini and to Will Smith for a couple of years while they still play on their rookie contracts to Askarov. They have them at a good price for now, and by the time it's getting time to sign these guys, the salary cap's going to keep going up, so they can take advantage of this opportunity and pay guys maybe like an extra $1 million or $500,000 per year more than they're worth. But if that's the difference between getting them to come to San Jose and not, I think it's absolutely worth it. Excuse me. So I just as a wrapping up before Corey, I want to get your final thoughts here is, especially in goaltending, they need to have a consistent veteran backup who preferably does have some playoff experience that can have a save percentage consistently over 900. It doesn't have to be groundbreaking, because Georgiev fits the veteran label and certainly has playoff experience, but he is not the answer for consistent plus 900 goaltending.
Well, two things. One, you might be able to get Scott Wedgwood depending on Ilya Nabokov's timeline. So we'll see how that all ends up going. I do like Scott, though. Like, if he stuck around for a while, that would not make me sad. He's just unfortunately one of those journeymen who gets traded a lot. Like, he has solid skill. He's not a bad goaltender. Just when you need to make room for another guy, Scott's the guy you send out, which is sad. He's a good guy. So if he sticks around, that's totally fine with me. My other thing, I think, is a cautionary word that obviously if you overpay guys a little bit to entice them, that's fine. That's often why you use no move, no trade clauses and things like that. And sometimes an extra year to bring an overall value down, or annual value, that is. You want to be careful, because you don't want to end up in a situation where maybe you've made the wrong choice and you've signed a guy to more than he's worth, and you realize he's not fitting in with the system, he's not working out, but then you can't get rid of the contract, Vitek Vanacek, because he's getting paid too much, even though on paper it looked good. And then you can sometimes end up with several of those guys, and it can hurt your team more than it can help them. But I ultimately trust in Mike Greer's judgment and ability to get things done. Just a word of caution to kind of what you were getting at.
No, that is a good point. And so maybe the overpaying is overpaying via trade. Get a guy who's got 3 years, 2 years left on his contract, a bridge contract where you can try him out, but could also still flip him to someone else at the deadline, where you could reduce that risk there and still get return value, which Greer has clearly shown to be able to do. Look at Granlund. He's the perfect example. Look at Ceci. For when they traded these guys and be able to take them on the deals they were on previously, and then flip them again when it didn't line up with the timeline. So I think you're right. I do trust Mike Greer to make the right choice. He's in the GM's office. I'm here sitting, or should I say swimming in a tank at the Denver Aquarium, right, and bringing you this analysis. So he's the professional, and I trust it more. I'm just more inspired, excited, and rooting for the process in the background. Maybe I'm not exactly the best for giving advice of the exact trades or what the right answer is, but maybe what I would like to see ideally happen if it works out.
I do think you're still in the right headspace, though.
Yeah, and I just think the Sharks, what I mean is, as well as I think the Sharks, yes, they've been building through the draft, and they have the deepest. It has officially been moved up to be ranked the #1 prospect pool in the NHL, and that does not include Macklin Celebrini. He was not included in that because he's already considered a full-time NHLer. So considering Will Smith onward as the prospect pool, they have the #1 prospect pool in the NHL, bar none. So, and it's only going to get better, right? Especially with a top 5 pick pretty much guaranteed. I mean, hopefully it's the first overall pick again. So I just eventually think you reach a point where if you have all these pieces, you have all this talent, you eventually do need to have, yes, you want to build through the draft, but at a certain point, like what happened with the Avs, you can only have so many players come up through the system. So eventually those later first round picks, those second rounders, some of those third rounders, those need to become trade bait and to draw in some of the more experienced guys to build around. And that, I think that's where I think is the Sharks are nearing this inflection point. They might not be there just yet, but I think they're at that transition point where they can still draft with their first rounder. But if they have a second first rounder, as they do this year, they need to be flipping that.
Yeah, and I mean, from what I said earlier, don't let me disparage trades, because I mean what I said. When you build your core through the draft, which the Sharks, I think, are successfully doing with Celebrini, Smith, and Eklund, and Askarov. Well, Askarov's a trade. However, I mean, Askarov's kind of a trade, kind of a draft. Like, yes, they traded for him, but like he had just been drafted. But anyway, I'm getting into semantics. However, when the Avalanche won their Stanley Cup, it was because A, they drafted a solid core of Nathan McKinnon, Gabriel Landeskog, Nico Rantanen, and Cale Makar. But then at the trade deadline, went out and got, I don't know if you know these names, Arturi Lehkonen, Valeri Nichushkin, and Josh Manson to help them win the Stanley Cup. And obviously those guys are now mainstays on the roster. So you can definitely use the trade should be about bolstering that core and complementing what it is that you have. And that's what the Avs did so excellently. But also, Dom, that's why I say I feel like your team is closer to turning the corner than, say, like the Blackhawks or the Ducks, is just due to that management from Mike Greer and your prospect pool. Because I think you're already at the point where you're very close or about to build your core through the draft. Now all you have to do is use those trades, as you've said, to build around them. I think you're really right there. Really.
Well, and with that, I think we don't have to, in your word, because I love it so much. I think, when you talk about the Fuck Rico t-shirt, which, good sir, please get it out of your system. I know you want to.
Fuck you, Rico!
We do need to have a shirt. Maybe our first shirt for the podcast could be something, "We perseverate on hockey," because that has to be the word of the day every day we bring this podcast. But anyway, we have perseverated on this enough. That I hope everyone enjoyed this segment and this a bit of a crossover between the Avalanche and the Sharks, because I feel like the Sharks are following similar steps to what the Avs did.
Yes.
From what we've seen about the building their core and the fact that they were able to flip such a good trade, a great value trade to get Askarov, the fact that the trades they are making, the pieces are there. The GM play is really top tier. The coaching will get better. I mean, it's 1 year. It will get better. So I think the path is there. The Avs are the model, and if the Sharks can follow that model, let's see where they are. I mean, it took the Avalanche 5 years, and part of that was there was a COVID year and stuff. So I don't know if I really count that. In my brain, it took the Avs 4 years, 4 full seasons of hockey to get from being the worst team in the NHL to the pinnacle. And that is we're looking at right now. The Sharks just finished this first year, basically this first worst year. Is it too crazy to say that maybe they're 3 years away? Or maybe it's 4, but 3 years away, 2 years away, maybe, because of that advantage of goaltending. It's the path is there, and I'm really excited. And so I hope everyone enjoyed that crossover to bring the Avalanche in with the Sharks analysis. But Corey, you mentioned some of the games from this week, and where should I begin?
Oh, man. Wait, who did you guys play before Dallas? Because you only have 2 like I did, right?
Yeah, so they were both home games. The first one was versus Vancouver, so maybe I just covered them in order.
Yeah.
And then there was the one in Dallas.
I know you said you weren't too keen on covering the games super in depth, as they were not your favorite viewing experiences.
Well, no, and I actually wasn't able to view them in their entirety. Luckily, as you know, I was preoccupied
doing something way more fun.
Way more fun. Had a wonderful night that night. So I was glad to miss the Dallas one. But you know what? I'll just get back into it because while I talk about Askarov and I'm hyping him up for next year, Vitek Vanacek is back healthy with the active roster, and that has resulted in Askarov being returned to the Barracuda in the AHL. And this immediately, Corey, as you and I both know, this makes the Sharks league worst. Like, I'm going to pull it up right now because I need to pull up the actual number. But the Sharks have 32nd of 32 teams, the league worst goals against average, despite having Askarov, despite having Mackenzie Blackwood earlier this year. So that tells you just how poor the backups, or I mean, I don't know if we can call them both backups, but just how poor both Vitek Vanacek and Georgiev have played this season. The Sharks have allowed 212 goals against in 57 games. Corey.
You what?
Wait, read that stat one more time.
212 goals allowed in 57 games. That is a 3.72 goals against average as a team.
Ooh.
By comparison, the Sharks have 148 goals for.
Ooh, that's a rough differential.
That is a minus 64 differential. So it makes sense that they're losing a bunch of games, and without Askarov there to try to bail them out, we just can project that this is going to get only worse. However, in this game against Vancouver, I only caught the end of it, but the end was the exciting part because Vitek Vanacek found himself in a goalie duel with Thatcher Demko, who apparently, after shutting out your team, just decided he was going to show up and try to do the same shit against the Sharks. Ultimately, in this game, just for those of you who weren't aware, Vancouver did win in a 2-1 overtime game. But it was for the Sharks, it was Tyler Toffoli scoring a goal 6-on-5 with a minute left in the game. So Thatcher Demko almost pitched 2 consecutive shutouts. Just give the man his flowers. The man has not been playing his best season, but let's give credit where credit's due. That was a good stretch of games there. And to be fair, Vitek in regulation only giving up 1 goal as well. It was a true goalie duel between 2 goalies who've had a rough season. So it was interesting to say the least to see that. I did not expect that. I was thinking this game would finish somewhere in that 4-3 category or 4-2 in favor of Vancouver. So I can be happy that it was competitive. And Toffoli just being clutch as ever, as he's always been the consummate veteran, being able to get it on his backhand and score it late just with a persistent effort and eventually be able to fire the 3rd opportunity home on his forehand, ricocheting it off the defender in the center of the crease for, I guess it's a goober goal, but I want to give Toffoli the credit because it was a good shot. Corey, what do you think? What's the verdict? Is that a goober goal or is it a good redirection from Toffoli off of the defender?
Well, if it's a redirect, I don't know if we can say goober goal. Goober goals are more like what Corey Perry's second goal was, where he chipped it and it bounced off Blackwood, then Gerard, then it went between the legs, then it went in the goal. That feels more like a goober. Because I saw the Toffoli goal, it was like a 1-2-3 attempt. I don't feel.
That's how I felt, because he took 3 attempts at the shot, and the 3rd one, he just banked it off the guy's chest, and it went in.
Yeah.
And so, he's just firing it at the net, and so I think he deserves the credit. But thank you for backing me up on that. Well, we can't go an episode without talking about Celebrini at least a little bit, though unfortunately, this is not the happiest time to talk about him, because in overtime, it was early on, less than a minute into overtime. Celebrini was actually called for a hooking penalty, and the referees determined instantly that this was impeding a goal-scoring opportunity. Seeing as it was an OT, this resulted in a penalty shot opportunity being awarded to the Canucks. And you could just see Macklin on the bench shaking his head in dismay, disbelief. He couldn't believe the call. I think it's one of those things where in the NHL these days, if you get your stick on the guy's hands or close to their hands, you don't even have to hit the guy in the hands anymore. They will still call it hooking. So I think it maybe is a soft call, but fitting with what the NHL calls these days. So the rookie is going to continue to learn those things, no matter how much game-wrecking talent he has. He is still 18, and he still has room to grow and learn in the game. So a good learning opportunity for him here. But what was interesting is actually the same player for the Canucks, Drew O'Connor, who was recently acquired from the Pens not too long ago, and had his penalty shot saved by Askarov in the Sharks' 2-1 victory. he was sent out to take this penalty shot once again, this time in a Vancouver sweater, and also this time facing Vitek instead of Askarov due to his being back healthy on the active roster. And as you might guess, Vitek Vanacek is no Yaroslav Askarov. He doesn't go, oh, no, 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 when the guys are skating down at him, and he did give up this goal. And once again, all you could see is the camera pan to Celebrini just staring on and I don't even know what the right word for it was, Corey, but it was just so sad and just human to see. Like, he couldn't believe it and just so heartbreaking. And the Sharks had really rallied there at the end of the game. They had started the overtime with a little bit of jump, and just what a anticlimactic end to the evening. I mean, we've talked about it, but the penalty shots in overtime are just so lame.
Very lame. And I did see Celebrini's look after the fact. Just it was.
Yeah, so that's really all I have to cover for Vancouver. Like I said, it's a 2-1 loss. I guess the Sharks can take some solace in stealing a point at home. And I mean, to give credit, like I said, we expect the Sharks goaltending to get far worse with Askarov being returned to the AHL, and Vitek really had a great game against Vancouver here. So good for him. Very excited for him to also have his baby. So a lot of good things that, as a human, I'm very happy for Vitek Vanacek to have had that great game against Vancouver. However, while that first game may make my initial comments about GAA sound ridiculous, Corey, you mentioned it. The Stars game really showed my worst fears come to light. And, this was the game that the Sharks were welcoming the Stars and their former players, Granlund and Ceci, back to town. This was on February 8th. And, there's no beating around the bush. The Sharks were absolutely pummeled in this game, 8-3. And like I said, just bringing my worst fears into reality. I'm in just disbelief myself is that Vanacek was in net for all 8 of these goals. Corey, wouldn't you think that he would have been pulled at some point? And do you throw Georgiev out there?
I was going to say, and do what? Put Georgiev out there? Yeah, dude, that'll really fix the problem.
I mean, fair enough. I mean, it's also the last game before 2 weeks off, so maybe that's why they let him play it out, because he also hadn't been able to play a lot recently, get him back up to game speed after that game because that game against Vancouver was his first one back. This was only 2 nights later, 2 or 3 nights later, I should say, actually. So... I could see maybe that's why he kept playing, just to get some minutes back under his belt. But
it is a little weird, though. Jokes aside, you usually pull a guy after 4.
And if it's not 4, 5 at least. But
I know.
Let him be out the whole game, play 60 minutes, and give up 8 goals. Man had a 7.65 save percentage. 7.65. Come on, that is abysmal. And Corey, you mentioned it, but the Sharks actually started this game really well. For a second there, I thought I was going to be missing out on something exciting while I was out on my evening on the town. But they scored 2 goals in the first 3 minutes. And, that's something we want to see. The Sharks don't put the puck in the back of the net enough. And against a playoff caliber team, especially when you have these veteran players, these guys who were just traded from your team, less than 2 weeks ago, coming back into town, you definitely want to get some jump because they know your game. But the Dallas Stars are a legitimate contender, a true playoff team, and they answered immediately, also scoring a goal just before the 3-minute mark, and they never looked back. They actually scored 7 consecutive goals before a Sharks puck hit the back of the net again in the third, by which point the game was already long since over. So again, this is what Sharks fans, this is what we can expect, unfortunately, because whether it's Vanacek or it's Georgiev in net for the rest of the season, we are dealing with injuries and we have less veterans than we did previously. So we are going to see young defensemen out there doing their best, and when things go bad, they're going to go very bad very quickly as guys get flustered, they get rid of the puck too quick, it causes defensive lapses, turnovers. And it's not like the Sharks to have an easy strength of schedule. Something you sent me, Corey, I didn't see exactly, but Sharks have one of the 5 hardest remaining schedules of the league.
Yeah, I think they were number 3.
Yeah, so the Sharks have supposedly the 3rd hardest remaining strength of schedule. So unfortunately, Sharks fans, I do not expect it to get better, but I will continue, for everyone listening, I will continue to do my best to bring something exciting to the pod, bring some extra fun news. But let's be real. Let's see how many games are left in this season. There are 25 games left in this season, and the Sharks currently sit at 15, 35, and 7. I can say
let's go for 20.
Yeah, I can say that I don't know if we will get to 20. I would like to get to 20, but based on everything I've seen, I don't know. Maybe we'll get to 20 wins on the year, but I mean, and if we do, that means we would have at least 47 points, so we'd be right on pace with the Avs 48 points in that season that they were able to draft Makar afterwards. So maybe that's a good sign, and we're tracking well for things to come in the future, but unfortunately, in the here and now, don't expect things to improve anytime soon. But before I exit the tank this evening, Corey, because I know we don't.
I'm reading your fun fact. Read the first part, because I also made the second part my fun fact. So I'm glad you know. Only do the first part. Don't do the second part.
Okay, so the first one is actually my only Sharks fun fact of the evening, but I was going to bring you a tank fun fact here.
Yeah, give me the tank fun fact.
It was something I found out today that I actually did not know, because, Corey, you and I weren't alive at the time, but on this day that we are recording, February 12th, back in 1991, the Sharks first unveiled their inaugural NHL jerseys as a new expansion franchise for the 91-92 season. It's crazy to think that it's been so long now, and I've been alive for more than 2/3 of the Sharks' time as an organization. So anyone out there who's like says you're not a true fan to anyone because they haven't been a fan for a long time, well, try to compete with me, because I got 20 years with these boys. But I would love to see a throwback to some of that original logo every once in a while. There's Sharks jerseys. I love the one I have, but the classics are really beautiful to see. So that's just a fun fact I learned myself today. But beyond that, thank you for joining me in the tank tonight, everyone. I hope this was something new and different, and I look forward to bringing you some more exciting new things next week.
That was a great segment, Dom. I really enjoyed that. I also did not know that the Sharks were an older expansion franchise than the Avalanche, so it's interesting to know. Well, I guess the Avs aren't, well, semantics.
It depends on how you approach it with the Nordiques and everything.
Yeah. Either way, thank you for your time at the Denver Aquarium, Dom. That was fantastic. I liked that unique segment that you came up with. Interesting. And I mean, I was going to say with the Avalanche, obviously they went in the 2016-17 season. The very next year in the 2017-18 season, they made it back to the playoffs. They were eliminated in the first round by the Predators, who went all the way to the finals, but they still made it back. So you never know.
Yeah, you're right. They did make it back. They hit the first round, then the second round for like 2 consecutive years. So they built slowly, but they were right there. So that's a good point.
Yeah. Well, Dom, the wait is finally over. The Four Nations face-off officially begins today as we record this episode Wednesday, February 12th, with Canada versus Sweden, and runs up through the 20th with games in Montreal and Boston. A great change up to the All-Star break and a chance to finally witness best-on-best hockey and perhaps a precursor to the 2026 Olympics. I am honestly very excited, so let's get right into this discussion. I have a couple quick little questions that we can quickly talk about here, because I'm definitely eager to go and start watching the game. Some folks are concerned that the players won't take play super seriously and not play to their full effort. I think differently, but what do you think?
Well, I am biased, and I have the benefit of having watched parts of this game earlier this evening, and even on mute while we were talking. I won't give you any spoilers, but I can assure you guys are playing full speed out there, and I've seen a not a fear or an avoidance of checking. They are showing out, and like many players do, showing that they want to play their hardest with their country's colors on.
Yeah, and I mean that's what I've heard. And I understand. It's like you don't want to risk injuring yourself or anything like that. But I mean, from what I've heard from the players, and I mean, of course they're going to say what the media wants to hear, but I am inclined to believe them that this means a lot to them, especially Seth Jarvis. Seth Jarvis is like, I will play right defense. I'm just happy to be here. And Drew Doughty was like, nah, put me on this roster. I want to be here very, very badly. So, I mean, it genuinely feels like these guys want to be here and they want to play best on best. And I mean, we'll get into our fun fact here later, which I think this is only going to ramp up even more. I just think, feelings aside from there only being 4 nations, I think it was a stepping stone in the right direction. I think the players recognize that, so they want to go out there and they want to give it their best so we can continue to have events like this and a World Cup of hockey, hopefully in the future. So this is, I think, a great step in the right direction. I think these guys really are going to go out there and show everybody why they're the best. I mean, especially teammates either playing with each other or against other teammates. So it should be very fun. Now, without getting into spoiler territory, the Canadian Power Play 1 looks absolutely absurd. So let's talk about it. Here is your Canadian. Here is your top Canada Power Play unit. It is Sidney Crosby, Nathan MacKinnon, Connor McDavid, Sam Reinhart, and is quarterbacked by Cale Makar. Sam Reinhart is a 50-goal scorer and yet somehow looks like the odd one out on this power play. I mean, what a fucking monster unit.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. We've also seen versions with Sam Reinhart substituted for even more ridiculous pieces that I know you know, Corey. So it's...
Do I know?
Wow.
Wait, what? No, back up, huh?
Well, you said Crosby, McKinnon, McDavid, Makar, right? And then Reinhardt's the fifth one?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they at one point tried it with Marchand out there as well.
That would
which
be
is weird, but just also equally ridiculous.
Yeah.
But can I just say, this is like the closest Canada as a country has ever been to firing a nuclear weapon. It's just the
seriously, that is a bomb.
It is a line of players unlike anything we have ever seen. I would posit the best 5 players on the ice at the same time possibly we've seen in history in a format like this.
I mean, I this is like a power play unit that I'd be willing to bet just is 100%. It never misses. Like, what do you do, bro? What do you do against that? You're just chilling, and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, here comes some of the best players to ever step on the ice. Like, oh my God.
There was that interview with Marchand where he was like, yeah, just tell them to put all 3 goaltenders out there and see if they can stop it.
Seriously!
Like they're like, play 8 men against us. Put 3 goaltenders in your net. Still play 7 because of the power play, right? So play a skater down, but put all 3 goalies in. We'll give you those 2 extra goalies. It's not going to matter.
Oh, yeah. Well, speaking of strong units, what are some other line combinations you'd like to see across just the various teams? Across all 4?
Oh, I haven't been. I've been good about looking into all of the rosters in depth to see the combos, but the fact that we can see Crosby captaining with like assistant captains of McDavid and McKinnon out there.
No, it's assistant captains of McDavid and Makar. They skunked McKinnon. They didn't name McKinnon an assistant captain, which people kind of raised an eyebrow at, which I did too, because the other teams like Finland and Sweden had 3, and then America and Canada each only had 2 assistant captains. Not that I disagree with their choices, but it's like, really? You didn't also want to select McKinnon as an assistant captain?
Like, yeah, there's not a good reason not to. Although you have said, Corey, that if you were going to pick your next captain of the Avalanche, you would pick Makar, and I quite frankly agree.
But here, I'll try and give one for each team here. So I'd like to see, obviously, I'll go with the easy answer for Canada, and I want to see the Cole Harbor line with McKinnon, Marchand, and Crosby. That's just a fun time. That would be entertaining to see. You could make a rat line with Marchand, Stone. Oh, who on the roster so fit into that? Doughty would definitely have to be on defense for that.
Marchand, Doughty hands down is on defense.
Marchand, Stone. Oh, who's the third forward? Probably Hagel. Hagel would be good for that. So yeah, we'll go with the rat line of Marchand, Stone, and Hagel with Doughty on defense with like Colton Parayko. That'd be fun right there. For the US, I would honestly, it would be the funniest thing of all time to have Austin Matthews flanked by the Kachuk brothers, like on each of his wings. What an absolute
that would be pretty
chaos.
sweet.
What an absolute bit of chaos that line would be. For Finland, I'd love to see Rantanen back with Lehkonen, so I'd go Rantanen, Lehkonen, and then Aho at the center. Oh, that would look sexy. That would be a nice Finnish connection there. And then
yeah, that's a good point.
Sweden is my one roster I'm not as familiar with, but we'll go Willie Nylander at center. Gosh, man. With Rasmus Dahlin and Victor Hedman as your defense, let's go Willie Nylander. Oh, man.
I mean, so if you want my opinion, this year at least, the Lucas Raymond has been on a tear. In my opinion, I think he's been part of why Detroit is even in the hunt. I think he is one of those up-and-comers who deserves his flowers every once in a while. I also think when you think about the Wild's success this year, he's a facilitator, so I think it could be interesting as a guy to play off of. Maybe he's not the top line, but I think someone like Eriksson Ek could be that assist machine for a line that has, so you don't have to worry about people who's the shooter.
Yeah, Nylander, Raymond, Eriksson Ek, and Nylander's the shooter, so that's perfect.
Can we just say really quickly, we commented on the questionable decision of staffing of Canada's goaltenders, but can I just say, like, I know there's a lot of good goaltenders around the league and all over the world, but holy shit, Connor Hellebuck, Jake Ottinger, and Jeremy Swayman.
It's one of the stupidest lineups of all time. Like, oh my God.
Like, tell me, like, this, we should be seeing 3 U.S. goalies in the net against the Canadian power play. All best offense against the best goaltending the world has to offer right there. Like, that is, hands down the matchup, because, I mean, most people have it projected to end as United States versus Canada at the end, because that's how most people will do it. Our media is between those two countries, so it's biased, and that's where the majority of the talent lives and is from. So it's just the reality of the situation, but can you imagine a world like that where you just have the insane offensive firepower of Canada versus the just unreal, like, top tier goaltending of the U.S.?
Yeah. That it'll be interesting to see how this tournament goes, because obviously Canada and the U.S. play a round robin game here soon, so all eyes will certainly be on that one. But with that in mind, Dom, who do you think steps up in this tournament, and do you think maybe someone will struggle?
So I mean, it is just on talent alone, and let's be real, they've won like 9 out of the last 13 world championship level things. I won't bet against Canada personally, but I think,
and I mean players individually, who do you think will step up? Sorry to clarify. We'll get into actual countries here in a second, but players wise, who do you think is going to like shine?
I think people are sleeping on the Finns.
I do too. Oh my God.
When you look at the fact that, like, if you talk top 6, you see Capo Kakko, Granlund, who's having the year to deserve being in the top 6. I mean, yeah, he's not on the Sharks anymore, but give the man his fucking flowers. Lehkonen, Teravainen, Aho, and Barkov.
Mikko.
Like, and Mikko, yeah, their centers are messed up on the lineup right now when I'm looking at the roster. Anyway, the fact that I mean, they have a legitimate top 9. Like, Patrick Laine is playing on their 4th line. Like, this is pretty unreal, the depth they have on offense there, that I think people could be sleeping on. And it's not like they don't have goaltending. They still have Luukkonen, who's been having a great year, and Saros, who, while not having his best year, has always comes up big in the big moments. The only one I don't know is their 3rd goaltender, as well as Lankinen, who's the backup for, I think, or maybe not the backup actually anymore, for Vancouver, who's still having a great season.
He's had a really good year. He's had a really good year.
He's the only one I don't like actually know by name. And in fact, Luukkonen is playing for Buffalo, so his stats don't look great, but I do agree that he's probably a better goaltender. Saros having the same issues. So even though their goaltenders don't look great on their stats this season as individual players with their professional teams, people should watch out for Finland. If anybody's going to throw a wrench in the plans and cause trouble that we don't see Canada versus US, Finland is that team.
Well, I think you kind of skip ahead here, and I'll just get into it. Which country do you think walks away with the win? That's a spicy one. Because I agree with you. I think Finland is a sleeping giant. The only kind of area of weakness you could point to is maybe defense. But I don't know. I think people are sleeping on the Finns as well. But in terms of who ultimately walks away with the win, it's hard for me to say because I can point out a flaw with each team. So I don't know. I really don't know. I'm rooting for Canada personally. I know that's blasphemy because I live in the US, but like all my favorite players are either on Canada or Finland. So I'm rooting for Canada, and then secondarily I'm rooting for Finland. So sorry.
You're rooting for them to play each other at the end after the round robin for the championship.
That would be great, actually.
But yeah, I think you're right. I think Canada's glaring weakness is their goaltending. If that wasn't there, if they had picked better, for lack of a better word.
And they could have picked better. If anybody out there doesn't think they have good Canadian goaltending, wait, did we talk about it before the episode or during the episode of who they could have actually picked? I think it was before, didn't it?
I think it was before.
Okay, yeah. They could have picked Mackenzie Blackwood, Darcy Kemper, and Logan Thompson. Logan Thompson could have been the starter. He's had an unreal year. Mackenzie Blackwood's been amazing. Or even Flower. There are multiple Canadian goaltenders better than who they picked. Aiden Hill's the only one with a save percentage over 900. And they gave the starting net to Binnington. What the fuck? I don't understand.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the only thing that is the potential weakness for Canada. I will have them pick to win it until seen otherwise. But with I think a big thing for the States is having Quinn Hughes still be injured right now,
and Miro Heiskanen for the Finns. Yep. Quinn Hughes bowed out of the tournament, and Heiskanen's having surgery. Yeah, it's okay. Honestly such a shame because you wanted to see those guys play. You do, and you wanted to see Makar versus Hughes, USA versus Canada. Like you want to see Jack and Quinn play together, and so. It's just a bummer, but they definitely, I think, will get another opportunity to play together. So, but it sucks. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to see the Tkachuk brothers play together because that is going to be bedlam. I mean, if you want to talk about a rat line, putting those two together, it doesn't matter who's on the third line. They're going to be rats who can fucking score though, like how Marchand is sometimes. So I mean, everyone's going to say it should be US versus Canada. I think Finland throws their hat in there, and you can't sleep on Sweden because these guys are all all-star quality. And that's the thing people don't realize is when you only have two teams for the all-star rosters for like East and West, if you will, we're only getting two rosters worth of guys. So the fact that we're doing this four nations thing and we can have four is really amazing. So not only is it better for the players, they have something more to play for. It's a better spectacle for us as fans. We actually see games rather than some weird skills competitions and stuff to fill the airtime. We also see so many more of these star players all out there together. So I think no matter what, we all win as fans. But yeah, my money will stay on Canada until they give me a reason not to have it.
Also in the All-Star game, they do it by division, so there's four.
Oh, are there four? My bad. I'm so used to
it. Depends though. It's dependent. They've changed it. But anyway, let us know what you think of the Four Nations face-off. Keep an eye on the games. We'll come to you next week with some updates from the tournament. We're excited to see how it goes. But without further ado, here are your three players of the week. Sam Malinsky, Martin Necas, and Nathan MacKinnon, with an honorable mention going to, I meant to say Devon Taves. I don't know why I said that. Honorable mention to Devon Taves. Dom, are you ready for the fun fact of the day? Although it's not really a fun fact, more a piece of news that it seems we have both come across.
Yeah, say it to me.
Alrighty, everyone. Well, we are excited to say that it has been announced that the World Cup of Hockey officially will return in 2028. And to quote this Athletic article, we will be asking for bids on hosting games, Bettman said. We will have a package that's just about done in the next few years. Another key detail still to be ironed out is which countries will participate. And the World Cup tournaments played in 1996, 2004, and 2016 each featured 8 teams. And Bettman said Wednesday that the World Cup will feature at least 8 as well, which is fantastic news because Marty Necas is a Czech player. Leon Draisaitl is fucking German. And it's like, you want to see these guys in these tournaments. So I'm very thrilled. They'll probably have to do like some mixed teams because some nations I don't think have enough players to make up a full roster. So it'll be really exciting to see the World Cup of Hockey. Like, this is the real deal, everybody. This is what the Four Nations is meant to build to, and it's so great that they have officially announced it coming back for realsies.
It is really exciting. I'd be interested to see because a lot of the stars who we don't see in the Four Nations due to the socio-political climate of the world right now, a lot of the guys like Ovi and the Russian players that have in the Olympics played under a non-national but a federated like flag. If we see something like that happen or not, depending on the political climate of the world at the time. Also, if with some of the junior teams, if a team like Latvia fields more of their younger players who are up and comers who might not be the most competitive team, but they have enough in that sense, depending on how they do it, if there's a certain age minimum and such. So they're not necessarily fielding under 20s or, those more junior teams. So I wonder, Corey, how that would work if maybe there's not enough NHLers, but they pull from like the KHL or the AHL, something like that for guys that aren't super young, but they're not these all-stars of the NHL, if that's how they would fill it out to say, because he said a minimum of 8 teams, so that we could see as many as 12. We could see three pods.
I'm not too sure, and I want everybody to know we're not saying, oh, Russia, the country, needs to compete. I understand why, especially in European nations, why Russia is not competing right now. We're not saying that. We would like to obviously see the players compete in some form or another, but we're not, to carefully tiptoe around this, we're not saying Russia as a country needs to compete one way or another. We understand. I would like to see the Russian goaltenders all on the same team.
Yeah, and thank you for clarifying that, Corey, because that's exactly what I'm trying to say as well, because there are a lot of players in the NHL who I think would want to participate, who would want to be part of those Four Nations right now if they had the opportunity. So we don't condone anything that's going on in the world.
And
We're
I
not
would
even
like
going
to
dive into that.
Exactly. I would just like to say there's quite a lot of Russian players here in the NHL who don't agree with what's going on over there. So that's all I
Just as a couple other teams we might see, the Swiss actually are currently ranked 5th in the IHF World Rankings as it stands. So they're technically tied / they have a tiebreaker over the U.S. Germany's a good one, and then when I mentioned Latvia, another possibility would be someone like Slovakia. Austria has also been on the rise recently. You already mentioned the Czechs. The Czechs are ranked 4th currently in the world. So that is just something to think about. We could definitely see a 12-team field.
Absolutely. Well, we'll look forward to seeing it, but for now, we will relish in the best on best that we're getting right now, and I think I'm going to go grab myself some dinner and sit down and watch it. Well, everyone, the clock is counting down to the final horn. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this episode of the Captain Avalanche Fancast. Did you know there is a comment section where you can leave your thoughts and questions? If you have something you want to know about the Avalanche, Sharks, or just hockey in general, leave it below and we'll be happy to try and answer it. There's also a unique poll for you to interact with every episode. The best thing you can do if you like what we're doing here is to follow us on whatever platform you're using and to share this podcast everywhere you can, whether that's with your mouse or your mouth. I'm Captain Avalanche Corey.
And this is Dom from the Tank.
Check out our new episodes every week. Thanks, everyone.